Hello, everybody.
Hello?
Welcome to Data Team Meeting number 2.
Yes.
On your desk, you have an agenda. If you'll take a look at that for a minute. I noticed that Miss Radford is not able to make it today, but Miss Camp is. So Miss Camp and I went over the things that we went over for Data Team Meeting number 1, and so you're kind of caught up.
Right.
Do you guys need me to turn the air conditioning on? Hot in here, do you guys?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Turn it down, yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let me get the smart board going here. And we will start looking at what we did at our last meeting, and then what we're gonna do during this meeting. So if you look at the agenda, we're gonna review the last meeting. We're gonna look a little bit closer at the identified student learning problem. And then we're gonna verify root causes. But that's a misprint. It should say identify and verify root causes. And that third item on the agenda is the main reason we're here. And if we're not able to get to the verification process step of the root cause, that's okay. We can do it next week. Because I really want to set the precedent of going slow. Slow is fast. Because I can remember that whenever I was a teacher, my first year in Kirbyville, at Kirbyville CISD, down in Southeast Texas, I was made a member of the calendar committee. I forget what you call that. And I just remember like meeting 3 times and going 90 to nothing. And I had a clue of what was going on. And everybody else did because they were veterans. And so I really want us to, I can go slow and make sure everyone understands it before we leave, rather than going fast. So to review the last meeting, we went over the collaborative data process. And if you will remember, also I will be handing out stuff as we go. I know that we had suggested that we should possibly have all your handouts. Oh, you do? Okay, good. Good. And that's what I was about to hand out there, right there. Thank you, ma'am. And if you have your handouts from last time, that works out real well. But if not, I feel like it'll be better, at least for this meeting, if I hand out one handout at a time, so you're not there with a whole bunch of handouts. But if you take a look at this flow chart for the collaborative data process system, that process that we're going to utilize, what we did last time was build the foundation. And in that, we looked at the 7 norms of collaboration and our roles and responsibilities. I mean, I explained this process to those of you who weren't familiar with it, and then we went over the roles and responsibilities, and we started and pretty much understood the norms of collaboration. So to recap fairly quickly, build the foundation. We look at the data. This part's already been done by me and approved by Ms. Batchelor, Principal Batchelor, in which I got an approved student learning problem. We're going to look at that student learning problem, but I want you to understand, everybody, how I came to that conclusion. The data that was looked at and analyzed to come up with student learning problem. Okay, and now we have some data called the root cause analysis that gets to the reason why we had this problem. And that's what that's the main purpose of today. And when we get to that part, ladies, it needs to be collaborative in nature. And that means not just me sitting up here, because in many areas I'm not the expert, y'all are. So we're all reaching a consensus on what we think. Well, if you agree with me on the root causes that I identified, the root causes that I identified, and also you might have some more that you might can contribute. There might be other root causes. It doesn't have to be just one. Okay, and so then the next meeting, or at least if this meeting might be broken into 2, and if so, then the next time that we meet, the 4th meeting, will be the last meeting for this semester, and we will look at solutions, generating a SMART goal, and looking at how we're going to fix the student learning problem. Okay, does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good deal. So, then let's just take a look at last week, what we had for the roles and responsibilities. This is the chalk paper that I wrote on during our last meeting. And we looked at our roles and responsibilities. And just to review those, I have roles and responsibilities. Data analysis, we'll be doing quite a bit of that. Punctuality, we all agree that punctuality is a thing that we should all do, be here on time, and everything like that. It says here, open and honest communication. Open and honest communication. And, okay, another one is communication with stakeholders. That's communication with stakeholders, meaning we're going to try to let the community know what we're doing, whether it be parents, guardians, the school board, business owners, the community. We can talk more about that a little bit later as well. And then we also looked at how we will eventually, when we come up with a solution, implement it, monitor it, and for this data team meeting, we may not be able to adjust it, but if this was an ongoing process, it's a constant adjustment process. And then if we come up with a good solution, let's say it's instructional strategies, and we implement it, and it's monitored, and when we look at the results, administration may like that, and they might put it into the form of an initiative. They might actually make it part of curriculum. And so that would be exciting. And then the last thing that we did during the last data team meeting, I'm going to hand this out. You might already have it, Ms. Rawls. The 7 norms of collaboration. And in these 7 norms of collaboration, we talked about a couple of them. One of them was paraphrasing and pausing. Those are the 2 main ones, right? Pausing and paraphrasing. And so there are some more. And I do want to let you go ahead and take these home with you to look over these. Probing for specificity.
Specificity.
I can usually do it. Say it. Can you do it?
Specificity.
Specificity. Specificity. Specific. Getting down, drilling down to the specific thing that is the problem. Okay. And then pursuing a balance between advocacy and inquiry. Anybody know what that means? Both advocacy and inquiry are necessary components of collaborative work. The intention of advocacy is to influence others' thinking. The intention of inquiry is to understand their thinking. Highly effective teams consciously attempt to balance these 2 components. Inquiry provides for greater understanding. Advocacy leads to decision making. Maintaining a balance between advocating for a position and inquiring about the positions held by others help create a genuine learning community. So I may want you to choose option B, but I need to balance between me pushing my agenda and it being in the best interest of the kids. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Would anybody like to be a timekeeper for this meeting? There's Miss Radford. Hey, Miss Radford. You made it. Thank you, ma'am. Let's see, let me get you a copy of the agenda. Okay, there you go. So we're just here on reviewing last meeting, ma'am, in which we went over the data collaborative process. And we went over our roles and responsibilities, which are data analysis and communication with stakeholders and being what's another one?
Yeah.
Generate solutions, implement and monitor, and see how our results are.
So today, what we're really gonna be doing though, the main reason we're here is to identify the root cause, and if we have time, verify the root cause. Like, what's the main reason, what's the real reason or reasons why there is this identified student learning problem? So let's move to the item number 2 on the agenda, which is identify the student learning problem. And for that, I wanted to show you a couple of things here. There's another, on the smart board, we have the agenda there as well. There is the identified student learning problem. A 14% performance gap for 8th grade social studies at master's. That is a gap between the campus and the state. And then there is a 10% performance gap at the reading at meets at Natchez Junior High. 2019, these are both 2019 STAR results. So these two gaps were our area of interest, identified student, two relevant identified student learning problems. I want to pass out to you some data. This is a report generated by the Texas Education Agency, and if you need any time, if you need a highlighter, there's a highlighter. I've highlighted the main points for you ladies. This is the state-generated report by the TEA. It's the Texas Academic Performance Report. It's got a lot of demographic and data in it, but what we're looking at here is what's highlighted. If you will notice, the first highlight is grade 8 reading. And I have at meets highlighted 2019. Now that 55%, that's the state. 55% of the state met at meets for grade 8 reading. And at the just so see how it says district at the top? That's going to be district and campus because we're such a small school. It's the same. Okay, so even though that says district, you can think of that as the campus as well, because we're the only campus in our district. So there's a 10% gap there. You know, that's what we want to, one of the things we want to work on fixing is that 10% gap. Okay? And then if you take a look at the grade 8 social studies, I've got the at Masters, 2019, 21%. And that's how the state did, how that's the percentage of the students that met at Masters for the 2019 Social Studies STAR, and 7% of my kids that year. So that's a pretty significant gap. The good thing about this is that we're a small school, and so when we're looking at grade 8 social studies, we're talking about me. And when we're looking at grade 8 reading, we're talking about Miss Barker. And Miss Barker, I appreciate you doing this with me, and because I know it's not easy to look at scores and be like, yeah, I need to do better. And so I appreciate that, ma'am.
No problem.
So we got the two people here that need to be worked on in this area. So that's the student learning problem, ladies and gentlemen. We'll look at that a little bit more also when we're looking at the root cause analysis. But I want to show you how we drilled a little bit deeper into it. And so what I'm about to pass out to you now is what's called an item analysis. Now this item analysis, if you don't know what this is a spreadsheet that I put together. If you look at the back side where it's highlighted, that's what it's going to be, what I want you to look at, please. This is 44 questions for the 2018-2019, we just say 2019 STAR. And for these 44 questions, you see that I've highlighted number 42. That's question or item number 42. Okay, and then if you see that 50 that is highlighted in that 32, well, that column there for 50, that's the state. 50% of the state got this question right. On our campus, my students, 32% of the students got it right. So what I've done is I ran what's called an item analysis, and this is the biggest gap of all the questions that were asked. So then what I did was I ran a release test in which they have the key, in which they have the tick that goes with that question. So I was able to say, okay, question number 42 is tick 8.12C, 8.12D cluster. So let's just go into this just a bit. This is a root cause analysis that we'll be looking at here in just a little while. And the student learning problem is twofold. One is the 14% gap for social studies in 2019 when compared to the state. So now I've gone, why? Because there is a 18% gap, let's see, 14% gap on number 42, which is 8.12C, 8.12D. Now, it's clear to me what I'm talking about because I've been looking at it. But is anybody not clear on what I mean? Because I can't explain it more if you don't know. We've got the student learning problem, which is a gap. We back up.
For the entire test.
Ma'am?
For the entire test.
For the, yes, right. So, right, the student learning problem is for the entire test. That's exactly right. So, when we look at our student learning problem, there's the 14% gap for me and the 10% gap for Ms. Barker.
Yes.
Okay, so then what I've done is just I've gone a little bit deeper into it. A 14% gap for me and a 10% gap for Ms. Barker. So now what I've done is I found on that test which TEK was missed the most.
Okay,
And
yeah,
now we're about to, and then now we'll look at which TEK was missed the most by Ms. Barker.
okay, got
So I just wanted to show you kind of how I came up with those two bits of data.
it, okay.
So, give me just a second. Let me see, I think I have a new handout for you guys to move forward. And that is when we get to the 5 why process. So, if you'll take one of those and pass it to your right, ma'am. We're going to kind of get close to moving into the reason we're here, which is to identify and verify the root cause. So our goal for today is to look at what I identified as the root cause, the reason, the underlying reason why we had this student learning problem, and then see if you guys can think of some other reasons why. So let's look at what I came up with. A 14% gap. I think what we should do though, I apologize, is if you take a look at your handout, you've got the student learning problem, the problem statement at the very top. Okay, we've got that figured out. We got that determined, authorized by Ms. Batchelor to go ahead and go forward with this. So this part is kind of set in stone, but the rest is not necessarily. So I have here a shortened way to put this. If you want to write that for your problem statement, I just put 2019 total. For the year 2019, there's a 14% gap, SS for social studies, and 10% gap reading. Just to kind of get us going on this activity. And that's our problem. That's what we're trying to improve. So, you know, looking ahead, when we come up with some solutions and we implement them, we're wanting to change that. But we got to go a little bit deeper. And when we do, we get to 2 root cause analyses. One is mine and one is Ms. Barker's. So when we look at, let's just take a look at mine, and then guys, I want us to get into what you guys might be thinking could be some other root causes. So for me, 14% gap, 2019, when compared to the state. Why? And that's when I did my item analysis and found an 14% gap. This should be 14% gap for TEKS 8.12C, 8.12D. And then I said why? Because these two are receiving low student achievement. Well, why is that? Well, that's because they're not learning 8.12C and 8.12D. Well, why is that? And I thought it could be because I'm not employing effective instructional strategies. I'm not teaching, my methodology is not connected. That could be one reason why. Why? The teacher needs professional development for the knowledge of research-based instructional strategies. So, with that being said, Do you guys know of any other, well, let's start with you, Ms.
Okay.
Barker, because this is, you know your area better than I do, ma'am. And yours was 8.10. Could you
Okay.
tell us about 8.10?
Okay, so, it's a variety of word choice and topics and reading, so, so with the gap, when compared to the state, it would be, I guess, because the same difference, same thing that you have for the gap, because I'm not reaching that separate, the 15% gap or 10% gap, because I'm not reaching that specific T.
Yes, ma'am, okay. What I did when I did your analysis, ma'am, because I don't know, I just kind of thought this could be a pretty good guess, but I don't know, is I put, and is this right? 8.10 comprehension of informational text.
Yes.
Do I have that right? Okay.
Yes.
Good. Is receiving low student achievement. Why? Students are not learning T, A, B, C, D, E cluster.
Right,
The teacher is not, why? Because the teacher is not employing effective instructional strategies. And why? Because the teacher could benefit from professional development on the knowledge of research-based instructional strategies. I just put that because that was an assumption I made. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. So I thought, you might could have some more insight than me.
well, with informational text, you need to hit a bunch of different things, so it might be science, social studies, it might be, and so I think if I will hit more of the topics, because I don't know exactly what they're gonna pull from on the test, if I would hit more topics. And I started trying to do that with you more in social studies and, hit more of the different areas, so they might see that type of informational text, I think. But like I say, again, research-based instructional strategies would help me because, that's what I think, but I don't know if that's research.
Well, and some of it to me is gonna be your kids. I
Yeah,
mean,
so-
like you got Hispanic
Yeah.
kids that are not gonna understand,
Right,
that you don't have
So
to
why
know
you
our
with this, when you
population.
saying that you're not employing effective instructional strategies,
mhm,
does that mean you not doing?
Me.
So I sit in a lot of your classes and I'm pretty much, if they pay attention and do what you tell them to do, I don't see no reason, and I'm like y'all, it's just that they're not wanting to receive what you're doing. Because I sit in here and every day, you know your history, I'm not trying to build your head up or nothing, but you know what's going on, every year and all of that, it, and I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, when I'm in here, so I think you do have enough instructional strategies, that's just my thought.
So the question is, what prevents the student?
Yeah, that's
From
what,
learning.
yes, that's the thing.
Walking away with his knowledge?
Yeah, they need his knowledge because he's giving them everything they need, like everything.
So really, it would be good to look at the question that was asked and their answer, like what answer choice they chose, as opposed to the correct answer.
Yeah.
And either there was some confusion potentially there, because it could be the way the question was asked, which in ELA, I know.
the way it's worded is very important
So
too.
difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say on the reading one, about informational text, that's one of the hardest ones for them to grasp along with inference. But there is so much, they have to know how to read charts and maps and graphs, and so there's so much more than just reading information, because they're gonna have all the, and pictures and illustrations and all these other things besides just a paragraph that they have to read or a statement and then analyze it, because they're gonna have all those other things embedded in there as well, that they have to know how to read.
Okay, so there was a lot put on the table just then. a lot. And so I want to break it down. No, I mean, so,
Bad.
well, it was a lot, and so just to kind of go through it, you said something about Mexican-American students.
Yeah.
So that makes me think of the subpopulation.
Yeah.
So- What else would you,
Well, I think that learning in general is a struggle for them. I mean, so that may be some of your kids that aren't grasping these, you know what I mean?
so there could be some of my Mexican-American students who aren't grasping it for some reason or other.
Just a lack of, you know,
And your TABR is not gonna show you because our subpops are so small outside of life that it's not even gonna show you, there's an asterisk there. But you can go into DMAC and look at that question and see who missed it,
Yeah.
and then go from there, because if it is a subpopulation, that definitely will direct you to.
Okay, okay. Well, Ms. Batchelor, we were in that site-based committee, and you were too, Ms. Radford, in which Mr. Hines, our new superintendent, did that state of the district. Do you remember by chance what, he had the demographics for Mexican-American students.
How many we have? I think it's 13.
He had it broken down, I thought into percentages, but he might not have. But you say 13?
13%.
13%, okay, okay, I didn't want to take that down, ma'am, since I had you. Okay, thank you. And so then, that's one subpopulation. And that makes me think of another subpopulation. Does anybody know what another subpopulation might be, besides Mexican-American, another one that might struggle?
Economic
Low
disadvantage.
socioeconomic.
Economic
Yes,
disadvantage.
yes,
We have a lot of those.
yes.
a lot.
We do.
A lot.
So that could be another reason. I mean, how can a student that's economically disadvantaged not be learning the thing that I'm teaching as compared to another student who's not economically disadvantaged?
Because they're, go ahead, Rose.
For one thing, they have to worry about, like, when they get home, they're gonna have a thing to eat.
That's right.
That's
Or
what I-
running water, and which some of them don't, and things like that. Whereas the other one, they get home, they got a meal waiting and stuff like that. I'm making sense.
No, that does, yeah.
Well, that child gotta be worried about
They have
that,
other priorities that,
distracted by the
distracted by the
Yes.
circumstances.
And stressed out parents.
Yes,
There's so
yes.
much data on stress and what that does. For the homework.
So I don't know how we can take this and use this yet, but I'm just taking notes right now. Also, I've talked to Ms. Hudson, our counselor, and many other things about how, we talked about this before, about how, also, they say that parents that are not economically disadvantaged, maybe middle class, upper middle class, read to their kids more. And so that's another thing to think about.
Not stressed, access to literature,
Yeah.
Yes,
money to buy those things.
right, yes, ma'am. And just dialogue or reading,
Talking with-
because when you,
well,
yeah, right.
just more involved. I mean,
Just the
those
communication
other parents are
process.
probably working till all
Yeah.
hours of the night.
Yes.
And these kids, disadvantaged kids, they're probably putting themselves to bed, getting themselves up.
Something to eat.
Yeah.
There's nobody there
Yes.
to, whereas our other kids, those parents probably sit down and help them do their homework or help
I'll
them,
make them. I mean,
right,
I'll
even
do
just
it
make them
because
right.
I'll make myself.
Yeah, that's, I think that's huge.
Okay. So then, that's one that, it sounds like we've come up with, is possibly, another root cause would be those two subpopulations that we have here in Natchez. Mexican-American students and economically disadvantaged
Depending on who
students.
missed the question.
Yes, ma'am. But then you said, Ms. Batchelor, it sounded like you were talking about having the student analyzing the STAR test, how the question's written.
Teaching them how to read a question and look for
Take it
their
apart.
yes. Take it apart and know what the question is really asking them, not being distracted by the word.
Learning how to use strategies.
Yes.
Yes, and that's
Basic
across the
strategy,
board.
yes.
That'll be reading, social
Yes.
studies,
Oh, yeah,
everything.
everything.
They've
Okay.
got to figure out what the question is asking.
Well, there's a certain way to take tests, and if you know, and with tests, y'all all know that, with the different tests you take in your life, you have to know how things are worded. I mean, it makes a difference.
Yeah, it definitely, yes, ma'am, it does. So with that specific possible root cause, and I believe that is one, now that I think about it. That could be, something I could be, you know, a workshop, a professional development, or something I'll find out myself, but it becomes an instructional strategy of its own. What time is it?
1:55.
Okay, so we're identifying some root causes that I had, which is the subpopulations of Mexican American and economically disadvantaged students. And then Ms. Basher got specific about this possible specific instruction strategy or professional development opportunity, which would be how to take tests, how the question is worded. So then I would say instructional strategies, something we talked about, professional development, and sub-pops. When you look at this piece of handout that you have, is there anything you would add to this when we look at the 5 why? This is a root cause analysis, the 5 whys, and there's many root cause analysis out there, but this seems to be the easiest way to do it, in my opinion. Okay, so then, I don't know if we have time to really do this independently, or if there's a way to do this as a group. But to do the 5 why, to deviate from what I have, just to see.
To be able to do that, I would need to see more information.
Okay.
What was the question that they missed?
Yeah.
Okay?
Because I gotta see what they chose versus the correct answer.
Like
So
What
that I
made them
can-
choose that
I can make
instead of
them
the,
avoid the wrong answer. There's a phrase for that.
What they chose. I will get that for you
Yes, sir.
before the next meeting, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
ma'am. Get the question of what they chose.
And then break down who got it wrong into subpopulations for us to be able to address.
And break down into subpopulation for us to address or analyze. Yes,
Yes,
okay.
analyze.
Okay, okay, yes, ma'am. Okay, well then that's awesome. So then, let me say this, because we're not gonna get to the verification part. We can do that next week, but before I run out of time, what else can I do as far as getting some materials to you? Ms. Batchelor said to get the actual test question for my test and your test, so she can look at the
Well,
wording.
I can,
I'll get it, okay. One of
I
us,
can look that up.
yours is question number 17, by the way. And I
Okay.
did not show you, I did not bring your item
That's
analysis.
okay, I can look.
And I'll get with you as well, ma'am, okay? But yours is question number 17,
And I can look.
2019 star.
Okay.
and I think we would need to have those beforehand.
Yes,
if
ma'am.
We're gonna have an idea coming to the table to respect
So-
everyone's time.
So how does this sound? It would be in lieu of what Dr. Hahn can do. But if we were to meet later next week, if I had it to you by Monday, would that be good? Because this weekend I'm gonna be at the house working on stuff.
Mhm.
And so I can make a commitment to do that. That's one thing I can do, is get that by Monday. So is there anything else that I can get that you can think of that would help you for us to go over this root cause analysis?
I think that's a starting point for me, so.
Okay, okay. You know, and Ms. Baxter, she knows, she's versed in data. So this is good. That's another thing about it is we've got people who are versed in data. We've got reading specialists. We've got people who, you know, both of you have taught reading and you. And then you guys have worked with subpopulations like Mexican American students, economically disadvantaged. So that's going to be great. I'll close with a couple of things, if we have time, is just to kind of put this in your mind, is that one of the things I was thinking might work. I don't know if it'll work yet, because I don't totally understand your TEAC. But it's taking that book, or a book like what we've like what we've done this year, that covers some of my TEACs, but also will teach the kids your TEAC 8.10. We used that book, Rivers to Streams to Rivers, Rivers to Oceans?
Rivers to streams, I think.
Rivers to Streams, Streams to Oceans, about Pocahontas and the whole Louisiana Purchase. But if we find a book that engages the kids, which I think that one did, and I'll be honest with you, my professor from one of my previous professors is the one who suggested that. So she hit a home run. She was a reading teacher as well. So that was a good one. It can engage them, also teach them some of my TEACs that we'll look at, and then also teach your TEACs. we might can use that as a medium to teach.
Oh, yes.
To help support each other.
Okay, so just to take a look, this is kind of relative, but kind of, I mean, in the overall picture, this is relative. What we need to do at the next data team meeting is right there, narrow the root cause. Verify. We've identified 3, which are instructional strategies, professional development, subpopulations, and specifically with instructional strategies and professional development, possibly looking at the TEKS and how to strategize, looking at the STAR assessment, which assesses the TEKS, the student's knowledge of the TEKS, and how to read these test questions, which is also reading comprehension. That's what's really cool about that. Is it's not just, we're not just teaching them the test.
No.
It's a reading comprehension. And so just to connect with what we were talking about a minute ago, just as I'm thinking about it, some of these kids who are economic disadvantages, they don't understand the wording of the Declaration of Independence. They don't understand the wording of a test question that, as far as the STAR is concerned, sometimes is designed to trick you, because they've been read to since they were babies.
Right.
That's pretty neat to work on that. But we'll look at next time what we can control and what we can't, and then we'll narrow the root cause and verify the root cause. And then that'll be our 3rd meeting, and then we'll move into our 4th and final meeting of the semester, which is picking instructional strategies, professional development, or any of those type of things, Mexican American students or economically disadvantaged students, what we can do before we what we need to implement, right? And then we'll be done for this semester. But I wanted to show you the mission statement that we currently have, and what we do should tie into our mission statement, our vision across the district, and our vision across the campus. And like Ms. Batchelor was telling me, and I communicated with our new superintendent, Mr. Hines, they're currently working on either revising or replacing or coming up with a vision, because the vision for our campus and our district is not that easily accessible. It's just not. And I think that Mr. Hines and administrators are working on changing our culture. But what we're doing should tie into our mission and our vision to change our culture. And so when we just look at the current mission, and I'll leave you with this to see if you guys can tell me what you think. Which part of this mission fits in to what we're doing? Or what is it that we're doing that fits into our current mission? The Natchez Independent School Districts, established and supported by the community, will provide an excellent, well-balanced education and a safe environment for all students. Does anybody want to say what they think? What part of that jumps out to me?
Well-balanced education.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, well-balanced education.
yeah.
And so whenever Mr. Hines gets the vision going, as far as a developed vision, that I think he's getting from us, he's getting feedback from us, the community, educators. And he's gonna probably have a written district and campus vision. We'll take a look at that and make sure that we are tied into that, and that way we can go out and we can communicate to stakeholders what we're doing and why what we're doing is part of the greater cause. And so that's exciting. Is there anything that someone does not understand about anything that I've done today or that we've talked about? I think we've made some progress. I've got homework to do, and that is to get that information. That's great. She's right though, because what she's doing is she's drilling down and getting she's showing us a high level of specificity. Specificity. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and I'll get with Dr. Hahn and see what's good for her and what's good for y'all for next week. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.